My guest today is a doula and childbirth specialist with a focus on birth after loss. She's the host of The Rainbow Connection, a podcast for mothers who have experienced loss. This episode includes discussion of pregnancy loss, including miscarriage, stillbirth, and infant loss. We share openly and with sensitivity, but if it feels overwhelming, please take care and revisit this important conversation when you're ready. I'm pregnancy-focused chiropractor Dr. Elliot Berlin, and you're listening to the Informed Pregnancy Podcast. Kristin Mundy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm honored to host you. It's a topic we don't talk about very often, and I'm uncomfortable because I feel like I should have certain sensitivities, and I don't know if I will, but I'm hoping the universe gives them to me, and if not, you'll put me in my place.
I'll do that.
You've been through a million different things. You have just an incredible warm energy. I only just met you, and I'm like, how? And I want to know everything. And you're also a professional in this space. And I could just tell you're one of those people that has been through some really challenging things, some of the most challenging things perhaps life has to offer. And you took that and decided to help other people have better experiences and support other people, and maybe even advocate to help people avoid the kinds of things that you've been through. So without being cryptic, I'll jump right in. Let's start at the beginning. Where are you from originally?
So originally I'm from Niagara Falls. Everyone knows Niagara Falls.
Because of the Maid of the Mist.
Yeah, exactly. Always fun doing the Maid of the Mist.
Who doesn't like a poncho?
Yeah, I grew up there. I now reside just outside of Toronto. Everyone knows Toronto too. Go Blue Jays.
Hey, go Dodgers.
We were just talking about how we're arch enemies, but
Yes, but we still like each other.
Yeah, so now I'm in just outside Toronto. I live here with my husband, who I've been married to for 6 years, and our 2-year-old daughter. And we have a nice little life out here. Yeah.
Career-wise, what did you think you were going to do when you were starting to think about it?
Oh boy, that's a good question. So I actually come from education. I used to be a special needs teacher, and my role to doulahood, I guess, that's where it came from. If you were to ask me this question when I was a little kid, I would have said I really want to be a mom. Like that was my career aspirations. Cool. Yeah, I have 4 brothers, so I grew up with a big family. And
which one are you?
I'm right in the middle.
Okay. Oh, the middle child.
And I very much took on that mother role at a young age and was obsessed with babies and helped my mom all the time and started babysitting really young. So like my role into a doula actually makes a lot of sense because doula means literally mother's helper. But I came from an education background, and when I first heard what a doula was, people talk about having a light bulb moment, and that was my light bulb moment. When I heard about it, I said, that's exactly what I meant to do.
Ooh, how did you hear about it? You didn't have kids?
I didn't have kids at this time, no, which is actually really unusual for most doulas, because usually when we become a doula, it's from our own birth experience or, becoming a mother, right? And for me, it came from a really just deep desire to support women in the most transformative time of their life. I was nannying also at this point on the side, so it kind of made sense. And I found out about a doula by talking to another nanny who was telling me that she was doing this new thing. And I was like, oh, like I need to do that. It was a no-brainer.
How long ago was that?
So that was 8 years ago. So I've been a doula now for 8 years, which seems kind of crazy. It kind of feels like just yesterday and forever ago all at the same time. But yeah, I would say I'm a well-seasoned doula now.
In the doula training, is it what you thought it would be?
It was what I thought it would be. And I was so excited to be a doula. I wanted all of that. Like I knew that I wanted to be a mother one day. That was still a really deep desire for me. And I already knew I had a gift with people. I had a gift with education. It kind of combined all my worlds. And that's why it really just made perfect sense. And I kind of ate up the doula world. Like I submerged myself deep. I learned everything and everything. And, I know for a lot of doulas, it's really hard to get that initial start, but I was like 120% all in. And I went to full-time doula work just a few months after I enrolled because I was just so in love with this career.
Was your first doula birth the first live, like, human birth you had been to? You'd been
It
exposed to?
was. Yes, it
What was
was. And
that
it
like?
was It was crazy. It was a VBAC water birth at
Oh,
a home birth
wow.
center.
Okay, I mean, not the most ordinary first birth experience.
Yeah, we really jumped in there and I had to learn so much. And I was really lucky because I had obviously amazing mentors. And I also was very honest. Like I never acted like I knew everything. I very much was eager though to learn everything. So my response at the very beginning was, I don't have the answer to that, but I'm going to find out. And
It's
that's
one
what
of
I
my
did.
favorite things to say
Everything's
because
figure outable, right?
I've been to places in life where I'll get a question and feel like I should have an answer.
Hmm.
And the desire is to sort of come up with an answer. But
Yeah.
I think the much better answer is good question. I'm not sure. Let me research that and get back to you. Which, by the
Hmm.
way, is how this podcast even started 15 plus
Mm.
years ago. I come from a very medical background, and I found myself in this birth world in Los Angeles where people are a bit more holistic, at least a good number of them. They're
Hmm.
asking all these questions about things I didn't know anything about. I'm like, I don't know, let me look into that and get back to you. And then you just get the same question again and again. I'm like, why don't I record that so anybody can
Hmm.
listen to it anytime?
Well, and just the whole notion of being a doula is like not giving your clients just whatever they want to hear or some like, you know, overarching statement that just makes them happy. It's really about meeting them at a level that they need and with honesty, right? So made sense.
What kind of emotions went through you at that water VBAC?
Oh my gosh. It was the coolest moment of my life. It was honestly not the coolest. It is up there though. It was funny because, and this is how I knew that this is also what I really wanted to do, is I wasn't tired. I was like completely energized. I wasn't scared. I was completely calm. I've lived a lot of life before I became a doula, so I think I can handle situations that others would possibly like freak out like very calmly. And that's how I was like affirmed that, yeah, this is the right choice because that was amazing. And I did so amazing. And I just saw how it really impacted her and her experience and his experience too, her partners. And that's what it was all about. Right. So,
I've interviewed a few people on the podcast who were in birth work before they had their first baby. Notably in my mind, Carson Meyer and Haley Oakes. Carson became a doula. Haley was a doula and then became a midwife. And all of you, you're definitely included in this, have this energy of like, I was definitely on this planet before, and I was a very popular birth worker. You
mhm.
just seem to have the wisdom and the confidence and the comfort with it all just built into you,
Mm.
hardwired from birth. Did being a part of that experience make you even more want to be a mom or?
Oh, yeah. Even when I
Mhm.
started being a doula, like, so before I became a doula, I actually was pregnant at one point. It would have been 4 years before I became a doula. And I sadly miscarried that pregnancy. But I always knew I wanted to be a mom. But my first pregnancy, that really ignited this heart ache and just deep desire to become a mother on earth one day. And when I became a doula, that didn't go away. I wasn't pining after it because I just had a deep belief that it was coming in its perfect time. But it definitely, the whole time, yeah, I couldn't wait. Couldn't wait.
That pregnancy was before you met your husband.
It was.
It was sort of one of those, oops.
It was an oops. It started off as an oops, and then it was a very welcomed and wanted pregnancy for sure, to the point where, I got a new job, I got a new apartment, I told my whole family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it
How
was
far
definitely.
along were
I
you when?
miscarried. I miscarried at 11 weeks. It was a miscarriage, so I didn't know the baby actually had passed a couple weeks before that. Back then, it's so funny looking back. It's not funny, but it's interesting looking back at that first loss and how differently I view that now, being, 13 years older, and what I would have done differently or how, it was so pushed aside until I became more of an adult, I would say. But yeah, that was a really pivotal change for me was that miscarriage. Mhm.
Um, how did you find it? Meaning it was a miscarriage until it wasn't. So what revealed
So
it?
what ended up happening, I had a horrible first trimester. I'll say that. I was, sick as a dog. And one day I just woke up and I felt like the lights were turned on. And I was like, oh, wow, I feel so much better. People told me that maybe around 11 weeks I might start to feel better, 12 weeks I might start to feel better. So here I was thinking that that's what was going on. And then I went grocery shopping one day and, I felt it. I felt myself started to bleed. And I called my mother and I said, I'm bleeding. And she knew I was pregnant. She picked me up and we went to the hospital. And that's when I found out I had lost the baby.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. How old were you?
So I was 24 then. And, I feel like I was a baby back then, but I said I grew up in Niagara Falls, right? If anyone knows Niagara, it is actually quite a small town. And the large majority of my friends had already been mothers for years and years and years. So for me to be pregnant, to welcome a baby at that age, didn't seem that crazy.
Typical. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You said now, flash forward, looking back, you would have handled things differently. So how does that mean? What did you do and what would you have done differently?
So after that first loss, I think because I didn't have a partner and I wasn't married, and there's all these like things that you're supposed to do before you welcome a baby. I felt the people in my life might have been a little bit relieved. They were sad for me, but also kind of relieved. Like for me, it was traumatizing. I was heartbroken and I didn't know how to move on from that. And I think it's because it was never like held, it was never witnessed. I never processed it with anyone. I also had a DNC for that miscarriage, and I made that decision out of fear, not out of what was best for me and my body and for what I ultimately wanted.
Just saying you had the option to let it pass naturally or to have a medical sort of dusting and cleaning. And
Yeah,
you had the,
I had the DNC. Yeah.
so looking back, you might have chose to,
I think I most definitely would have. I wasn't given full consent on what I was choosing. I didn't know that, there's an increase of scar tissue. Now, knowing what I know, having have miscarried again, the process of letting my body do what it needed to do was actually like people will say, like it was so traumatizing to me. But for me, it was really helped with that processing. It gave me time to kind of understand what was going on. It allowed me to create rituals afterwards. Whereas the DNC, I was just put out. I didn't have a support person. I woke up and it was over. And it was like that pregnancy for me just felt like it didn't happen. So it never really was properly dealt with. And if I could go back and be my own doula, it would have just been so different.
again, I'm really sorry you had that experience. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it wasn't the last of similar type experiences, but I'm already learning from you, and so is everybody listening. And
Mm.
so I appreciate that you share because it's important for other people to hear and to learn, and for all of us to talk about it because then we'll be able to support somebody who
Hmm.
inevitably is going to go through it in our lives.
Yeah,
I
I
was
think like this is one of the reasons why I became a doula, to be honest, is like I don't feel like I was given full and complete informed consent of what my choices were and what that would look like and how it would affect future pregnancies and my mental health and so many things. And
It's a lot to think about, and I think that probably for most people, when they end up in those shoes, they don't really have anything to base their decisions off of. So,
totally. And if you don't have anyone that's well versed in, being trauma informed or in loss, it makes sense that the people in your life wouldn't know how to support you, right?
absolutely. Your own personal journey had quite a few more twists, and so did your professional journey. Let's take a little
Hmm.
break. When we come back, I'll continue to learn from you. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Kristin Mundy. And okay, so you have at age 24 an unexpected pregnancy that you grow to love. and then not really the most informed process of ending the pregnancy. Things that now in retrospect you would have done differently, things that you learned over time. You did, though, then find your husband.
I did.
And then I know there's a burning desire inside you to become a mom. So is that something you pursued quickly?
So I will backtrack just a little bit. I do say I would do things differently with that first loss, but I also have grown appreciation that I did the best I could with the choices I had, and it did make me who I am today. So I have lots of grace for what happened then. Yeah, I would do things differently, but I don't have regrets, if that makes
That
sense.
does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I did meet my husband. And it's funny because that first miscarriage, it really did catapult my life in other ways. So after I had that, like I went through this huge medical ordeal and it was triggered from that pregnancy. So that pregnancy sent me into a huge flare. Never have happened to me before. And that was about 6 months later. And all of a sudden, I was paralyzed from my belly button down.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, get the story. It gets crazy. Sometimes when I say it, I'm like, did that really happen? And I found out that I had lupus, and my lupus had caused something called transverse myelitis. It was a huge shift in my life because I had, been diagnosed with this new disease, went through chemotherapy. I really was like fighting for my life. And I did fight and I won.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I know it seems like, such a blur and kind of crazy, but after that it really, put things in perspective in my life of what I want because I just went through these two huge traumas back to back and I wanted to meet an amazing man. I wanted to get a good career.
Like a Blue Jays fan?
Yeah. And, what did I do when I got better? I signed up for online dating. I enrolled in the school, met my husband the first month that I signed up for online dating. And on our second date, I remember saying, I really want to have children. Like, where are you at with that? And we joke about it because we were very different. He was a 25-year-old, male, and I had just gone through this huge pivotal life moment and I was ready to start a life and he was like, I don't even know like if I want kids. And I'm like, what?
Oh,
No. Yeah.
yeah. By the way, for you, I'm surprised you waited till the second date.
Yeah, honestly. But I fell in love and I knew that he was an amazing man. He would be an amazing father. I knew we wanted the same things with life and we just needed some time and I was right. So
Worked out.
it worked out. Yeah.
How did you resolve the the sort of different timelines you had in mind?
Uh, I'm a very patient woman. I will say that. I'm a very, very patient woman. And some people will say I'm a little too patient. But we also lived a lot of life at this time and we had a lot of adventures and everything just needed to go on its own timing. And that's when I became a doula, was a couple years after that we met. And a couple years after that, that's when he proposed and he sealed the deal. So it all kind of worked out the way that it needed to.
Nice. Okay. And then how soon after that do you start trying for the baby?
Yeah, so a year after we got married, we started trying.
Everybody was on board?
Everyone was on board, and I wouldn't have gotten married with him if he wasn't on board. This was always kind of the plan at this point. But we started trying, and I always had in the back of my mind just wondering, like, oh, I had that miscarriage before. Like, I wonder how things are going to be, and what's going to happen. And you hear a lot that like it's not uncommon to have a miscarriage. And I really thought that, I kind of paid my dues already. So when we went into our pregnancy, I was elated because we got pregnant and people are going to kill me when they hear this, but we got pregnant right away and we
Yeah, I
were
feel like you
thrilled.
earned it.
Yeah, we were thrilled and everything was looking great. And, it was perfect. We just had bought our first home all in the same month. We found out we were pregnant. We bought our first home
Oh, wow.
and it was a really exciting time in our lives.
How did you feel in that first trimester?
Horrible. I do not have good first trimesters.
So repeat scenario.
Yeah, very, very sick. So, one thing that made this pregnancy different is I had a subchorionic hematoma,
Oh, bleeding, spotting.
tons of bleeding. And like Pretty like horrific bleeding. I feel with women when they have a hematoma, sometimes they don't bleed at all. And then there's those ones that, it's like a water faucet is turned on. And that's kind of where I fell into things. And
That sounds
obviously,
scary.
it is scary. No pregnant woman ever wants to see blood. Never. You never want to see blood. And, the first time I had a bleeding episode, I thought for sure that we had lost the baby. And to our surprise, we didn't. And then I had another one, and it was the same thing. And then on our third one, that's when we found out that it was just too much. It was too much for the baby and that I was going to miscarry. So, yeah.
How far into the pregnancy are we talking?
So that pregnancy, I was 10 weeks. And, with my first experience of having the DNC, I knew that I didn't want to do that this time. So I ended up choosing, and this is another helpful information for people, but I ended up choosing to let my body do it on its own. And I waited a really long time, a really long time. Weeks and weeks went
Oh,
by. I
wow.
think, yeah, 3 weeks went by. Nothing was happening. And then I finally was like, okay, I need to intervene here because my mental health is not doing well at all. Like it was pretty excruciating. Yeah.
Was medical advice to
Mm.
not wait?
So we thought because I was bleeding already that like things were going to happen. And then time just continued to go on. No one thought that it would go on that long. And then I just like mentally couldn't handle it anymore. And I knew we needed to intervene. So I asked my doctor for misoprostol just to help support things along. And
To basically put you into contractions?
yeah. And another helpful tidbit here is, even when I was given this option, like I was a doula at this point, I knew birth, I knew how to support birth, I knew how to make informed decisions, at least I thought. But I didn't really live in the realm of loss at this point or pregnancy loss. Some of my clients had went through miscarriages, but I never was there early enough to like hold their hand and help them through it. So when my doctor prescribed misoprostol, I was told like you can take Tylenol. It's just going to be some period cramping. It's going to be over within like 4 hours. And when I took the misoprostol, I went into full blown labor at home. And I remember that catching me really off guard. My husband really off guard because he was not expecting to be my support person. We both just thought this was going to be an easy thing, and it wasn't. It was definitely labor, and it worked. I labored in the tub for hours. I knew how to support myself in this sense because I knew birth, I knew the things to do, and I delivered a little tiny baby into my hands. And for some people, that might feel horrifying. And in a way, it is because no one wants to ever do that. But it gave me a lot of closure. It helped my body and my mind kind of catch up to what was happening. It allowed me to say goodbye and to do something to honor our baby. We buried it in the yard at our first house, so it was really special. And it also allowed my husband to be a part of it because it wasn't just me losing this baby, he was losing this baby too. So it felt really healing. It was, in a sense, it was surprising and shocking in that sense, but at the same time, I felt it really to be really healing.
A second miscarriage in the first trimester, but towards the end.
Hmm.
Is that already raising a flag for you?
It was, especially because I was diagnosed with lupus. And it's interesting because after I did lose the second pregnancy, obviously at this point we were like, okay, I've had two miscarriages. There's a lot of excuses in terms of like, oh, but they're so far apart and, these things happen. I got a lot of those. But we had to do a lot of digging and like I was tested for all the things. Everything came back normal. I was tested for every blood clotting disorder. My uterus was checked. Everything looked to be fine. So my husband and I just chalked it up as these things happen. And unfortunately, it's happened twice. So, yeah.
You said you buried the baby at the at your first home. Does that mean you didn't
Hmm.
do any testing on the
We
genetics?
didn't. No, and that wasn't something that was offered to me at all. Going back, knowing what I know now, I know it wouldn't have made a difference, but maybe it would have helped me feel like at least I turned that stone over. Because ultimately, what we found out was, I was the problem. And we can get to that. It wasn't my babies that were the problem.
Um, how old are you at this point?
I would have been 30 years old. Yeah.
So 6 years in between.
Yeah. 7 years actually. So I would have been 31,
Oh,
31. Yeah.
seven. Is the recommendation just try again?
Yep. Try again. They said wait a cycle. Try again. I should say before we started trying, we did testing before then. So I did all the blood clotting factors even before my second pregnancy, and everything came back normal. Everything was normal. So we felt pretty confident that it was just bad luck. And then when we decided to get pregnant again, we just put me on progesterone this time and thought maybe like that was going to be the solution.
Were you able to get pregnant quickly again?
Yes, very quickly. I never struggled getting pregnant. I struggled staying pregnant. That was the problem.
Hmm. Through this whole time, you're attending births?
Tending births, yeah, and
I mean,
postpartum
I kind of
support. And
feel like for me, that would be salt in an open wound.
honestly, it never was for me. And maybe this is something to talk about with my therapist, but for me, I find so much healing for myself by helping others.
I do too, but in that particular
I
realm,
know it's
it
very
just seems
bizarre.
so close. No, I mean, you're clearly a better person than I am.
Definitely not. But I will say it is the same world, but I also just found so much joy and fulfillment from it. So honestly was that's where the healing aspect goes. And I had already been in a world where everyone was pregnant around me and everyone had families. So I had 10 years experience at this point of being, wanting to be a mother and it not happening. So it was just, doing what I've always been doing, wanting to be a mother and kind of being on the sidelines of that. So it wasn't anything new. And it actually gave me an outlet to feel hopeful and have hope. Yeah.
How did pregnancy number three unfold?
So pregnancy number three, I mean, everything that I'd already gone through was so transformative, but pregnancy number three was where, my world got absolutely rocked upside down. We got pregnant. We were super happy. Everything looked great, normal, as you can say. But again, I had another hematoma. And this time we were very, very cautious because we're like, okay, bleeding is an issue for me, obviously. So we're going to err on the side of caution here and put you on bed rest. Now, obviously, as a doula, that's very hard to be on bed rest. So I had to completely shut my business down pretty much like overnight, find the backups for all the clients that I had. And I was in bed until 16 weeks. My doctor told me if you're bleeding, you're in bed. And that's kind of what we did. And who knows if that was the right choice, but that's what we did. Yeah.
Well, I mean, 16 weeks is a lot further.
It's a long time. Yeah. So I was willing to do anything and everything. And every week that passed was, being in bed for 16 weeks sounds horrible, but I was so happy that I made it into the second trimester and I passed the times where I lost my pregnancies previously. So I was overjoyed. I was totally fine,
Right.
parking it
I
in
mean, it
bed.
sounds like you would have stayed in bed for 40 weeks if they told you that's what it
Oh, yeah.
would.
I would have danced on my head, given my left leg. Yeah, I would have done anything, right? So I was totally fine with it. And I also was very sick once again. So it kind of was like, well, I feel like crap anyway. So
Was it beyond the first trimester?
yes, I was sick the whole time. Probably up until I was about 20 weeks pregnant, I was pretty sick. And part of me was like, do I have hyperemesis? But I didn't because I wasn't puking. It was just like all day feeling really lousy. But the bleeding eventually stopped and the lousiness feeling eventually faded. And it was the happiest time of my life. I had never been that happy before. I've never felt so beautiful. I never felt so excited, so in love with my husband. The anxiety was there, but it lessened so much. Every week that passed, it lessened. I really felt like we were going to be bringing this baby home. It was a really, really beautiful time of life.
What happened after that?
So I made it past 24 weeks, and that was a really big milestone because that's when people say, like, if you were to deliver, your baby has a chance of living, right?
Survivability. Yeah.
Yeah. So every week that we passed 24 weeks, I was like, wow, this baby is coming home. I never once in my entire life ever contemplated that I would lose my baby at this point. If anything, I was like, maybe I would go into early labor. I'd have to have an emergency C-section. I'd have to have a NICU baby, whatever it was, those other traumas that we experience. But one morning I woke up and it was actually the day of my baby shower. So it was my first baby shower, which was obviously a humongous day for me. I had waited so long to have a baby shower for myself after attending dozens and dozens of baby showers for years. And that morning I woke up and I noticed that I was putting on my clothes because I was getting dressed up, and I noticed that they were a little tight and I experienced some swelling. And I weighed myself and I had gained about 5 pounds really, really rapidly. And I'm not a big person, so 5 pounds is pretty significant. And I paged my midwife, or I emailed my midwife, and she just said, page the office if you have a concern. And I didn't feel like it was page worthy, so I just waited to hear back from her. And I did. And she just said, it's the summer. You just had a baby shower, ate lots of salty foods. We'll keep an eye on it, but some swelling is pretty normal. And that's what I chalked it up as. And then, the days passed, and 2 days later, I was still pretty swollen, not significantly, just enough where I even, as a doula, I knew swelling is normal. I'm pregnant. But at that point, I had felt like my baby might have slowed down a little bit. And I paged my midwife, told her that those concerns, told her I was feeling lousy still, told her I was still experiencing some swelling. And she just gave me the whole, you're 30 weeks pregnant, your baby's getting big, babies run out of room. As long as they meet 10 kicks in 2 hours, you're good. I really think that, this is just your anxiety. You've had 2 losses before. It's normal for you to be worried. And I was just like, okay. I was, I've never been this pregnant before. I was still a first-time mom needing support. And I really leaned into trusting my midwives. And I didn't know much about stillbirth, which I feel I have guilt around because I am a doula. And I think in that moment, I needed my own doula to say, hey, if you feel like something's wrong, let's get you the care that you're needing.
Totally,
right? Yeah. A few more days passed and still the same thing, and paged them again. They gave me the same thing. No one encouraged me to get checked out. And that whole week, I just felt like I was nuts. I was like, wow, I'm really struggling. I'm going to have a really long pregnancy if I'm struggling this much already. And then I woke up on Friday and I had a headache. And I was like, okay. So symptoms just progressively got worse throughout the week. And then Saturday morning came, and I remember laying in bed with my husband just saying, at what point, is it anxiety, or what point is this your intuition? At what point do I need to say to my midwives, I just need you to check me out? I feel like something's wrong. Why not just check me out? And I paged them again, and I got the same thing. It was it's Saturday. Don't go to the hospital. Don't waste your Saturday. Take some Tylenol.
It's the opposite. They're encouraging you not to.
Yeah, honestly, I look back and it makes me feel really sad. This was still COVID time. And in our area in Toronto, and I'm sure this is everywhere, but our midwives were worked to the bone. And I look back and I just think, they were exhausted. They were overworked. And I always felt, looking back as well, that they kind of treated me, sometimes they treated me like a doula that knew what she was talking about and took my concerns at face value. And other times they treated me like a first-time mom and pushed my concerns away. And it was dependent on what their agenda was. And at this point, they treated me like a first-time mom saying, oh, this is just your anxiety. And I'm like, well, I'm a doula and I know that these are concerning, and why aren't you taking that into consideration? But I hung up that phone with my midwife and I was pissed at this point.
Could you have gone, even though they're don't waste your time?
I could have gone, yeah, I could have gone. But at the same time, after the whole week that I was told, you're just anxious, I was like, wow, am I struggling that much? I'm really struggling with anxiety. And I could have made a call any time to be I'm just going to go in. But I didn't trust myself. And that will be the biggest regret of my life forever. But when I did hang up the phone, I did end up going in. And I went against what my midwife had suggested. And at this point, I had convinced myself so much that I was just in my head that I didn't even ask my husband to come with me. And I drove myself to the hospital. I, let them know I was coming, and let them know it's reduced fetal movement. And they laid me on the bed. And that's when my whole life changed when they told me that my daughter didn't have a heartbeat. And I was completely alone. And of course, my life just flashed before me in that moment. And I was devastated and crying and screaming. And my nurse looked at me and told me I needed to be quiet because I was scaring the other mothers. I had to get her to call my husband, give him the news over the phone, and he was at the hospital within 5 minutes. Yeah. And we had no idea what had happened because she looked perfect. We didn't know she was a girl yet. But there's nothing in my pregnancy that was of such concern. We had different things happening, like the hematoma, and at one point I had a placental lake, and everything was a non-issue, according to my MFM. I was at an MFM this point. So I dual care with a midwife and MFM, and no one thought that anything was of concern. So to find out that she had passed was just like, what? Especially after I had worked so hard to get that far. And that's where my life completely changed. My life, like my relationships, my work, everything. That was a very pivotal moment for me.
Um, let's take a break. I mean, that's powerful. It's
Mm.
still setting in for me. Just the whole thing. I'm trying to take in all the elements, how you got that far, how you got past so much, how you had the instinct, how you advocated for yourself to a degree, but then were shut down. The idea that you're a birth professional and part of your brain knows something is wrong. But even for you, it's hard to advocate for yourself that it's your baby shower day. It's so intense.
Hmm.
I know that part of that pivot is what led to what you do now. And I really want to learn more about how you figured out what was going on and what it
Yeah.
is that was going on and how maybe we can help other people should they have something like that. And also the work that you're doing to support others. And we know you have a baby, so
There's a lot left.
how you ended up getting there. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Kristin Mundy, and I can see why that changed your life forever. I mean, I think just hearing about it, honestly, is going to change my life forever. I'm going to have an
Mm.
impact here, and I want to continue learning from you, and I want to learn things that are going to help me help other people. So, what is next for you?
Yeah. So after that, we did investigations, and I did ultimately find out that I do have a blood clotting disorder, the same blood clotting disorder that I was tested for before I even tried to get pregnant. I have antiphospholipid syndrome.
APS.
Yeah, and that's why my daughter had passed. And when I talk about her being pivotal, of course, it's going to be pivotal when you lose your child. But as my, doula self, who I am, the second I found out that she had passed, I was online researching, trying to learn as much as I can to prepare myself to birth her. And I was exposed to this whole new world that I had no idea about before. And that was the loss world. And even before I birthed her, I had pivoted and started supporting women in the DMs before, like even when she was, to be frank, dead inside me still. And because I found this world where women were preparing to give birth to their baby, but because their baby wasn't here anymore in the physical sense, they weren't given, birth support. They weren't given full informed consent. They weren't given the love and care that they deserved. And they also didn't know how to advocate for it. So here I was being a birth worker, and now officially, I was already a lost mom, but now a stillbirth mom, letting women know like these are the questions you want to ask and these are the options that you have and make sure you ask for this. And that's when I was like shown there's this amazingly huge need of mothers who are preparing to say goodbye or just got devastating news. And with my history with my first two losses, I had a lot of experience in this realm of different experiences too, and I knew that I could do a lot of good in this world, this lost world, in terms of how to advocate for yourself in loss, how to grieve. And that's when my business really pivoted to supporting lost moms. And then after that, if you can believe it, my husband and I were not done. And I think there's two feelings that people have after they lose a child, and it's either I need to get pregnant right away or I need to take some time to heal. And I was in the camp of desperately needing a baby in my arms. But I did take some time to grieve, let my body heal, get some support, make sure that I had more answers and better care set up for my next pregnancy. And we tried again and we were successful again. This time took a little bit longer. And very early on in that pregnancy, even with my daughter, when we lost her, her name is Vienna. When we lost Vienna, my doctors told me, like, this is just lightning hitting. This is a lightning strike. We know what the problem is now. We know how to treat it. So your success for a healthy pregnancy after this is, it'll go up at least 75%. I was like, wow, 75%. Okay. Like, we should be good. We're doing something different this time. So I was put on blood thinners, which I should have
Okay.
been on.
Yeah, just because we mentioned APS,
Hmm.
it's an autoimmune disorder,
Hmm.
and your body sort of creates antibodies that make your blood clot,
Hmm.
and it can create little clots in the placenta and prevent the baby from getting good blood flow.
Hmm.
So I guess the two questions are, why didn't it show up the first time you tested for it? And then once you know you have it, how do you treat it?
Yeah, so I actually tested for it 3 times before I was pregnant, and every time that we tested was negative because you're actually supposed to test more than once. You're supposed to test once and then repeat it again in 12 weeks. So why it didn't show up in the test previously is because, and this is news to me, but it can wax and wane.
Oh, wow.
So you can be negative and then get pregnant and it trigger, this to flare up in your body. And that's what happened to me. And you don't test for it during pregnancy because you won't get accurate results, is what I was told. So that kind of makes you feel it's a little unnerving, right? It's a little unnerving that this can just
Pop up?
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I was given like care when I first noticed some changes, we could have done an NST, maybe saw that baby was not doing so well and I would have delivered early. And then how you treat it is you should be on blood thinner. So there's two different ways of treating it actually. One is blood thinner, so low molecular heparin it's called, or Lovenox, what people like to,
Lovenox.
yeah.
So you inject yourself it, like,
Yeah. You
how
inject
often?
it in your belly. Some people it's once, some people it's twice a day. For me, it was once a
Okay.
day,
At least daily.
every day. Yep. For your pregnancy and 6 weeks postpartum. And then some other people are also prescribed an immunosuppressant, usually hydroxychloroquine. And what that does is just keep your immune system at bay so it doesn't create anything or your body doesn't attack itself. So I was put on both of those for my next pregnancy. And that felt really safe for me because I was like, okay, we're doing something different. But my doctor, gave us the news that, we got struck by lightning again. And my child that I was carrying had a severe heart abnormality called ectopia cordis
Oh
and
my.
was not going to be compatible with life.
Oh my God.
And
How much can one person,
yeah, that was,
two people?
yeah. And like, that was a shock for us just because it had nothing to do with
Total fluke.
yeah, it really was lightning striking. And I lost my son at 17 weeks, and we went through the same process of, delivering him and naming him. It was very like compounded trauma. I hadn't obviously even processed my daughter's death, and here we were processing another baby. And all the while I was still I was still working, which is crazy. And yeah, that's what happened with my son. And if you would believe it, that was not enough to scare me away because I knew when I got quiet and I listened to that little voice, there really was a baby waiting for me. It was just really testing me to get to that. So we ended up trying again and we conceived my daughter. And spoiler alert, she did make it here alive and she's 2 years old today.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She's the best thing in this world. I always say in this world because she's not the best kid ever because there were other kids that existed before her, but she's the best kid in this world.
May I ask what
And
your birth was like?
so I actually had a planned cesarean because she was breech.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
Canada's the one that started that whole we can't deliver breech babies vaginally anymore.
Honestly, That is a story in itself because I did everything under the sun to make sure this baby was not breached, to the point where I just thought to myself, maybe there's a reason why she is, and I'm just going to trust that there's something I need to learn through this. Because I actually delivered my daughter Vienna unmedicated vaginally, and it was, it was obviously a very different birth, but it was the best experience of my life. And I really did want that with her, but I was very open to just whatever got my baby here safely.
Totally. But even, vaginal cesarean, just having a baby move through your body into the world alive.
It really, so as a doula, this is where things really shifted as well. This was my second huge shift because as a doula, we really want, a lot of doulas anyways want, advocate for this certain type of birth that's the most physiological, the most supported, and, supporting your natural, you're born to birth, all these things. And these are all things that I believe in and are well and good. And then everything changed when I was like, I just want this baby here alive. Like, that really is what I want. And this is where, when I say things pivoted, being pregnant after loss, being pregnant after experiencing stillbirth was the second hardest thing I've ever done in my life. There's not a lot of traumas that you experience that you willingly expose yourself to again.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And that's what pregnancy after loss is. You're really walking in the fire, hoping not to get burned this time. And in the birth world, most of the support that is available, I'm very well and aware of how to support a pregnancy. That's what I do. That's what I've been doing at this point for, 6, 7 years. And that part I knew. But when I went looking for support in my pregnancy after loss, there really was not much. Like, it was really slim pickings. Like, everything out there is really geared towards this, like, hopeful, joyous, beautiful pregnancy. And my pregnancy did not feel like that. In moments it did, but it also had this other element of trauma and fear. And yeah, I wanted a beautiful birth, but I wanted an alive baby more than that. And that really tested me as a doula and exposed a different world again, that it's not just about supporting a physiological process. It's also supporting about, these deep rooted fears and support, and like a special kind of compassionate care and language, like being trauma informed, that the majority of care out there isn't. Not even OBs, not even midwives. And it really is a different kind of caring for someone that's pregnant after loss, because unless you've experienced it yourself, it's really almost impossible to understand. So my pregnancy was really lonely. It was really isolating. I didn't want to go to the prenatal classes or, the prenatal yoga, or, I didn't want to be in those worlds because I was just surrounded by women who were having a joyous pregnancy, a blissful pregnancy. And I wanted them to have that. I didn't want to be the person that came in that was the nightmare horror story. I really wanted them to have that experience. And I also was grieving my innocence of pregnancy, that it would never be the same. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, I told myself, like, wow, if I'm experiencing this, there are millions of women who are also experiencing this complete isolation, when this should be the most joyous time of your life. And I always promise myself, like, if I get through this pregnancy and I hold an alive baby at the end of this, I'm going to do whatever I can to kind of bring both those worlds together, my doula world and my loss world, and make sure that these women don't have to go through their pregnancy after loss feeling this way.
So you have a platform.
I do have a platform.
You can't be there personally for everybody who's pregnant after loss,
No, I cannot.
but virtually you can offer them support. Tell me about your platform.
So I have a variety of different options, and I really do try to support women, from right from loss to, navigating next steps or trying to conceive, into pregnancy after loss, in a variety of different things. So I do have an online community. It's free. I give a lot of, support on Instagram. We love Instagram. It's such a beautiful, accessible tool that I can provide support for absolutely free. But I also have a trying to conceive after loss community online. And I also have an offer called The Haven, which is my pregnancy after loss program. And that one specifically, because we are focusing a lot on pregnancy after loss, that one is kind of combining everything that I felt I needed in my pregnancy after loss in one place. So it has, the doula support when you need it from a doula that understands loss, not just a doula off the street. They're wonderful, but like I said, unless you've been trained in bereavement or experienced loss, it's just something that is really hard to support someone with. It has birth education that is geared towards pregnancy after loss. So rather than it being, just a cookie cutter birth education, it really talks about how to find safety throughout your pregnancy and your delivery. It teaches you how to navigate, the grief and the hope. And it's just a little bit more comprehensive for a lost mom. It also has a beautiful community. So that community that you feel like you're losing in your pregnancy after loss, you're just in the wrong spot,
You're
right?
in the wrong neighborhood.
Yeah, that community exists, and that's what I wanted to really provide them because, there's so much to pregnancy about sharing it. It's not just about sharing the fear of the pregnancy after loss, but it's about like commiserating and having a normal experience and feeling like you can have that while also having all these other things going on. And we also have, learning workshops every week. So that's a good time. Doulas usually give prenatal education, and that's when we are able to do that and connect as a group. So it's a really beautiful hub, just kind of everything all in one and mesh in one place. And any woman that all over the world, if they need it and are looking for this kind of care, this extra support in their pregnancy after loss, it exists and it's here for you when you need it. Yeah. And I also obviously have my podcast. So one big thing that for me when I was pregnant with my daughter is I used to live listening to birth stories. I mean, I listen to your podcast all the time. I've listened to every podcast, every birth story. But and like Christina Perry's was one birth story where I was like, oh my God, like I see myself here.
Yeah, you can relate.
But coming across those stories was so difficult. And that was something that made me feel more isolated. Whereas like my first pregnancy, I listened to birth stories every day. So I made the Rainbow Connection podcast as a way for women who have just lost or they are pregnant again to be able to go to a place that, they can hear stories that look and sound like them, where they can find validation and community and hope. That's something that I'm definitely really, really proud of.
I am so sorry for all of the loss that you experienced.
Thank you.
And I feel like lightning should not strike one person even once and more than once. And again, you have such a strength to you and the ability to take that and do what you're doing to help other people and to create that community and to create the resources that weren't there for you. It's really special and powerful. I was hoping to learn from you, and I am, but I'm going to go visit all of your resources and soak up everything I can so I can be a better supporter of others. We're going to include all your resources on our show notes, but tell us where we can find you online.
So I hang out most on Instagram, and you can find me at the.doula.life. My podcast is at The Rainbow Connection. And then my website is thedoulalife.ca. So Instagram is where I hang out most, but any three of those platforms you can definitely find me in.
Kristin, thank you again. Thank you for sharing and thank you for building community at home. Thanks for listening to the Informed Pregnancy Podcast. And for more pregnancy and parenting information just like this, visit us online at informedpregnancy.com.